All right, hello, welcome everyone. I'm just going to give it just a couple seconds to allow everyone to enter the chat today. All right, hello, welcome to this edition of our 49er Industry Chats. This 49er chat is called The Only Story That Matters with alum Josef Lemoine from class of 2011. My name is Alana Tell-Oren. I'm the Alumni Outreach Specialist here in the Alumni Engagement Office. And I've been with the university for about 8 years now. Also a 2011 grad, yay. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce Josef by reading his bio. So Josef Lemoine is a story editor working in the development department at Walt Disney Imagineering, founded by Walt Disney in 1952. The Imagineering department is the force behind the memorable Disney experience. As a story editor, Josef writes story development, participates in brainstorms, design meetings, and pitch sessions. Josef then writes treatment, scripts, sign copy, marketing copy, and show copy. His work contributes to the creation of immersive lands, attractions, hotels, cruise lines, shops, restaurants, and an array of Disney experiences. Josef is a Filipino-American, a proud husband and father who also writes fiction, nonfiction, and poetry on the side. Please join me in welcoming today's industry chat host, Josef Lemoine.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. And if you have any questions during this chat, please feel free to just drop them in our Q&A box. As Ricky's mentioned over there as well. Please, anytime you have a question, just go ahead and drop it in the chat and I will relay that to Josef. So why don't we start from the beginning? What made you choose Cal State Long Beach? Like, what attracted you to this university, and what were your kind of interests growing up and all of that?
I think right off the bat, Cal State Long Beach. My sister actually went to Cal State Long Beach, and she had a really great experience there. And I was looking into writing, and I saw the professors that were teaching there, professors at the time like Gerald Laughlin and Stephen Cooper and Tyler Dilts, and and I was reading their work and was just really inspired by the caliber of professors that you had there, and also the vibe of the campus. Mm-hmm. And I think too, there was this, I feel like I had to there was this level of preparation that I kind of had to go through. I was an older student when I went there. I had dropped out of college early on, and I thought that I wouldn't need school. I was very interested in filmmaking, and I made films on the side, films on my own, short films, and even a feature-length film of my own. And I was, working for production companies, reading scripts, and also as a production assistant. And I just had this, I got to this point where I just thought, I don't need school. I'm going to figure this out on my own. And I ended up, I worked different jobs. I was an accounts receivable clerk before going to Long Beach for like 7 years. And then I would write all night. I'd go to work in the day, write at night. And I'd write everything from poetry to essays about music, and I'd write screenplays and short stories, and just writing everything I could, just because I had this desire to just, I don't know, really just kind of spill my guts on the page, but also just kind of share my stories, but also, I guess, figure out my voice in the process. And I you know, I was at a point where like I thought that I would be at a certain level, and I wasn't there, and I kind of had to take this hard look at my life and think, well, like, why am I avoiding school? You know, am I avoiding it I think I was avoiding it because I became the guy who said I don't need school. And there was this one trip to the Middle East. She was on this religious pilgrimage, and she thought I was lost and needed all kinds of help. And she was actually right. And we were on this bus tour in Jordan, and there was this moment where our tour guide was talking, like, we're out driving on the King's Highway in the middle of nowhere, and he's pointing out like just these empty patches of desert, saying like, oh, this, event from the Bible happened over here, and this, epic battle happened over here. And like, I was thinking in the back of the bus, like, how does this guy know all this? And as I was thinking it, someone at the front of the bus said, how do you know all this? And he just like stood up so proud, and he just said, I got my education in America. I went to school. I got my bachelor's in New York and my master's in Florida. And I just looked at him and like, just thinking, wow, he got his education in America. I was, wait a second, I live in America. I can get my education in America. And it was kind of just this time in my life when it was probably one of the most low points in my life. And the beauty of the low point, the all is lost moment in a story, the dark night of the soul, is that the hero or heroine's pride is so depleted that anything becomes a possibility. And so I had spent so much of my life bragging that I don't need school, that suddenly I saw the possibility that school might be that thing that might actually help me. And so when I went to Cal State Long Beach, I just treated it as this miraculous opportunity to learn from people who, are successful in their fields and are successful writers, and who are using their voices and having their voices heard. And, during that time period, I started, sending stuff out to small, publishing companies and small, online journals and college journals. And I started getting stuff published. I got my first poems published at Rip Rap. It was just a really great experience, and also too, just studying great literature and the impact that it had on me personally too was I had been so focused on white stories, classic American stories, totally neglecting well, frankly, like feminist literature, ethnic literature. And through that process, I realized I had been like completely avoiding all the stories that I really had to tell as a Filipino-American and someone, who's of mixed heritage. So, honestly, that might have been the most powerful thing to come out of that experience, was the literature I was, introduced to got me to realize and see myself and appreciate myself for who I am, as opposed to, growing up in a time where I'll be frank, like I wanted to be white. And I started to appreciate, what would be considered my otherness, and compared to what most of the stories that, have been consumed, and which, it seems to be, changing in many ways now.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thanks. I mean, that's a, powerful story that you shared about, coming back to education and how, that's made you just realize so many things about yourself. And what about like with your time at the university? You mentioned that, you know, certain professors like inspired you to really attend Cal State Long Beach in particular. Did any of them end up like being your mentors or anything like that? Or did you have like mentors at Cal State Long Beach or feel like you were mentored?
Yeah, you know, I felt like the mentoring came very naturally. Like it was
Mm.
almost just by being a part of, you know, my teacher's class, my professor's classes, I was being mentored. The conversations that we would have after class, you know, I think about just even Jerry Laughlin, who, you know, he would notice things about me, and you know, and I didn't even want to take poetry. I wasn't. It was something that I had done throughout my life, but I didn't see the merit in it. And because I couldn't get into any fiction classes, I took poetry because I was a creative writing major. And I mean, there were lessons about poetry and really deeply connected to life that I got from him. And probably one of the big things that, and I apologize ahead of time, I'm going to be just going off of tangents all over the place, but
Totally
he
fine.
told he told me to try out for the slam poetry team, and I didn't even know really what slam poetry was, or I mean, I had realized I'd watched it and seen it like on like Deaf Poetry Jam and stuff like that, but I didn't put those two things together. And so I tried out for the team, and I was, you know, I made the team, and I was one of 4 people out of 5 who tried out, who made it. But you know, we ended up winning regionals. We competed in nationals in Boston.
Wow.
But again, I remember going to Boston thinking, okay, everybody's got to hear what I have to say. And it became about listening. And
Mm-hmm.
there were things there were subject matters that were shared on the stage that are now much more, that at the time no one was talking about, you know, not like today. And I started to realize my own, just my own blind spots. You know, I thought of myself as someone who's, you know, very open-minded and liberal thinking and progressive thinking, but I realized I hadn't talked to anybody who was transgender, um, who um, who had gone through the challenges that, well, through challenges I just wasn't familiar with. And I went from, it went from being, coming from a place of like needing to preach to listening. And
Yeah.
I feel like that was something, again, that just became a huge lesson for me throughout my education at Cal State Long Beach, like the importance of listening and really seeing what others are going through, and yeah, and how they're causing us to grow. And I'll say, like, I think it developed in me this sense of empathy that, you know, I think I've always been sensitive, but using that as a way of connecting and empathetically to other people, like that's kind of everything, and it really applies to what I do, and I've been doing for the past 10 years at Disney.
Wow. Yeah, that's, I mean, that's so true. It's like, you know, half the part of like great storytelling is like listening to people and, you know, and coming up with everything and yeah, just be having that empathetic ear, you know. Um, and so with Disney, like how did you get your foot in the door with the company? Did you have some kind of internship while you were attending Cal State Long Beach, or did you like know somebody or anything like that?
Both,
Yeah.
both. And it's an interest. So what happened was this. On my graduation day, I was going to begin a job canvassing, like that week. And I went on stage to get, the container that's going to contain my diploma, which was going to be coming in the mail. And I get off of stage and I go to my dad, and my dad grabs my shoulder and he goes, "Guess what, Joe? There's a writing internship at Walt Disney Imagineering." And so my dad, he was an Imagineer for many years as a graphics designer.
Oh, okay.
And I'd always seen that place as his domain. And I thought it was really cool what the artists and the engineers were doing there. I never saw a place for me there. And so when he said that, I said, "You guys have writers at Imagineering?" And he was just like, "Well, who do you think writes everything, Joe?" And I was like, "I don't know, the artists, the engineers." And he's like, "No, we need writers to write the stuff that is created." And so like, even when he said that, I thought, I guess I'll give it a shot, but they're not going to want anything to do with me. Like I was, deep into like feminist literature and ethnic literature. And I was, thinking about, my novels, I was going to write, and the screenplays I was working on and, had written and pitching those. But I sent my resume in, and they liked the resume, and I led to an interview, and I had the greatest interview of my life. Like it was just, and in the process of that interview, I realized just how deeply Disney is a part of me. And I equated it to like, as someone who grew up Catholic, like, and had avoided my faith for, a long period of time. Like I avoided that connection, but I started to see how deeply it was a part of me. But there was this question they asked me, like it was just this amazing interview that I'd never had before, where I just knew every answer. I knew I felt like, wow, like I'm really sharing who I am. My voice is being heard. And then they asked me, okay, well, they're telling me, this is really great, Joe. We're really excited about you. We just have one more question for you. And that question is, what do you have to offer that no one else does? And I froze. And the reason why I froze was because I actually did know the answer. But I thought, oh, if I tell them the answer, I'm going to be just deemed a troublemaker, and they're not going to want to do anything with me. Mm-hmm. But there was the only thing that kept coming through. It was like, no, this is what, is on your mind. Like nothing else was coming to my mind. Like I couldn't BS my way out of it. So I just took that as a sign, and I told them the truth. And the truth was that I grew up with Disney, and I wanted so deeply to be a part of it, but I never really felt like it was meant for me. And I said, because of that, I really know how to make people feel welcomed through story. And there was this really long pause, and they said, okay, well, it was great talking with you, and we'll get back to you, at some point. And I didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. And I thought, well, that's that. Like I ruined my shot, good job, Joe. You had to open your mouth and, be so self-righteous. And then 2 weeks later, though, I got a call and saying, when my start date would be. And I was in. And I feel like that answer actually paved my path where I work. That that was almost like my mission statement. And that's kind of been at the heart of everything that I've been doing ever since, whether in small ways or great big ways. So.
Wow, that's amazing. I thank you so much for sharing your about the whole interview process too, and just and yeah, that's you mentioned, diversifying your storytelling and everything. Have you found a way to then kind of weave that into your work at Disney? And are you able to kind of pitch your own ideas outside of what's traditional for them also? Do you feel like, since you shared that statement with them, can they kind of come to you for other ideas and things like that?
Absolutely. I feel that there's, no matter, I'm going to go off on one of my tangents, but it is related. I feel like in anything you do, you have to share yourself. Like the only thing that you have to give of value is your unique perspective. So the more you try to be like someone else, and the more you try to offer what other people are offering, the more you're taking away from yourself. So it's all about getting in touch with the thing that makes you unique. And so, yeah, and it was, part of it was just the act of speaking up that kind of got into my mind. Oh, that worked. That was successful. I should do that again. And, and I would see a number of different reactions, from range of not so positive to incredibly, positive, from not so receptive to, incredibly receptive. But, and, especially now, I do feel like I've become, one of the writers on staff that has that perspective to give, the experience, to share that experience of someone, who, comes from, not the majority, and to also then notice and recognize the other voices around me that can also offer, can contribute to this conversation and get to this place where we are seeing a project from all sides. And because, we're creating things that, attractions and lands that are, hopefully live for, decades, we really need to, it's in our best interest to get it right the first time. So, because it's, this isn't a movie or a TV show that comes and goes. And, this is something that people go and visit every day for years, and sometimes generations. So I don't even know if that answered your question. I think parts of it were in there.
Parts of it, yeah. Definitely. It's all great though. You're the storyteller. And so how do you feed your creative side? How do you know what ideas are winners, and how do you develop those?
Honestly, just having conversations, just talking with my fellow Imagineers, whether it be fellow creative directors, fellow Imagineers in story development. One of the best things about being at the office, which really I haven't, I've only been there a handful of times since the pandemic really went into full effect. But there was this atmosphere, and we still try to hold on to this atmosphere, which I think, where at the office, it's all about who you run into in the hallway. And you ask about, oh, how's your family doing? How are the kids? How's that project you're working on? And then it leads to just brainstorming, and just, oh, I'm working on this thing. And, what do you think about this? Um, and so we just end up, just coming up with like fun ideas. And I think the new hallway has become text messaging. It's like, the people that I'm close to, we text, and, if there's something that, I have a question about, I'll be in a meeting. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? Is this weird? And, what's really cool is there really are plenty of opportunities to pitch your ideas. I will say, because we are a big media company, and this is obviously no mystery to anybody else, as it comes as no surprise, but we have really beloved intellectual property that makes a lot of money. So a lot of people want that. So, a lot of the stuff that we're making, a lot of the experiences we're creating, the lands, the attractions do revolve around that intellectual property. But there's always conversations about what that next original experience is, what the next Haunted Mansion is, Pirates of the Caribbean, Big Thunder Mountain, things like that. And even if our original stories don't get into those experiences, to create these whole experiences, our perspectives still get, are included to really flesh out what these, experiences can be, even if it's with intellectual property that people are familiar with. I think there could still be a perspective and, point of view that, that we bring that, guests wouldn't get from just watching the movie it was based on or the TV show it was based on. So.
For sure. Yeah, it sounds like a, very collaborative, like fun, exciting place to work with, lots of just like-minded, creative people.
Hands down, that is the best thing about where I work.
Totally.
Like I work with legitimate geniuses that I aspire to be like, and they're also sweethearts. So it's a pretty great combination.
Yeah, it's all you can ask for, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Speaking of work, in your like day-to-day, like what is your day kind of at work look like? Are you kind of project-based? Do you work, you mentioned a bit about like working with a team. What's kind of like a typical day for you in your shoes?
That's a great question. We are project-based, which, is interesting because, I work, I get my paycheck from one place, from the Walt Disney Company, but there are all these projects that I'm on at any time, anywhere from like half a dozen to over a dozen projects sometimes, ranging from, small, little changes that might happen in one of the parks to, major, what are considered e-ticket attractions or even lands. And it can be, there's the meetings we have can, go from like brainstorming really big ideas. Like, okay, say a park needs a new land. They're looking at bringing in a new land. And this is some of the research they've done, about what the audiences and guests there, really like. So what are the stories and experiences that we can create that would really feel right for, this specific park, whether it be in Shanghai, whether it be in Paris, whether it be in Orlando, and really breaking down sometimes really high level ideas like, well, what is the feeling? And this is a huge one. Like, what's the feeling that we want guests to have when they go on this attraction, or they step into this shop, or, you know, they eat at this restaurant. What is that feeling that, you know, when they walk away, you know, what do we want them to feel? That's also unique within the, you know, amongst the different attractions and, you know, other feelings they'll be getting from other different places around them, but also fits thematically as a whole with, you know, the park or the land. And I mean, sometimes they can get very philosophical. Sometimes they can get very in the weeds, you know, like what should the copy on a restroom sign be? And everything in between, you know, and, you know, there's meetings about what characters will be saying on a ride. What will the cast members be telling guests? What's the cast member role in this, you know, attraction? You know, you think of something like Cars Land, you know, which is a world of cars. Like, what are, you know, how do people even fit into this world? And those are, you know, those can be very philosophical questions. And then, you know, you got to think about what the characters will say. What will the guests see and hear and smell and taste? And I mean, and I'm going to get to this part of the presentation because it's part of the title. But the only story that matters in what I do is the guest story. And so I'm always, for me, I always have to champion what guests experience. And, you know, I think some people think, oh, you know, I'm going to write this, you know, I want to write this great attraction for Iron Man. I want to write this great attraction for Frozen. But everything comes back to what is the guest going to experience this, you know, it here, and putting yourself into the guests, you know, into the guest, you know, through their eyes, through their shoes, you know, and thinking about all the types of guests that could come through here, and making sure that, you know, this attraction really is for, you know, everybody, and just finding ways to make everybody feel really seen and heard and just represented. And yeah, again, I've gone on so long, I forgot what the original question was.
This is all
My
great.
bad.
This is all great. You're doing great. But yeah, well, that's, you know, and that's so much to think about. It's like anytime, you know, we create something, it's how are others going to, you know, perceive it, and is it for everyone? And with a company like Disney, it's like, yeah, like they're, you know, creating for you know, the masses, and to invoke like this kind of, you know, childlike wonder, and, you know, things like, and make you, you know, think also. Can you share about like any projects that you're, you know, kind of like the most proud of, anything that we'd recognize? And you mentioned Cars a little bit, and are you able to share?
I mean, I can share
more?
I can share what I've worked on.
Yeah.
The biggest project, probably the biggest project I've worked on is so there's a new land coming out at Tokyo Disney Sea called Fantasy Springs, and yeah, I was one of the lead writers on that. And it's a land, and there's many lands within it. It was really fun to work on that. And I think the attraction I'm most proud of, well, it's probably a project that I'm working on right now, but I don't know that I could talk about it yet.
Okay.
But there's a project also at Tokyo Disney Sea it's based on Soaring here in California Adventure, but we had to make it fit in what is 1901 Italy. And we had to create a story that would make sense for why you would be in 1901 Italy and yet be able to soar around the world in the 21st century. And it was an interesting challenge, but we really thought about the guests that went there. And there were a lot of the guests that go there are young women, and they like to go as friends. They like to go in groups of friends, and we wanted to create a story for them. And so we kind of the hero of this, kind of who leads us to this soaring adventure is this character, Camelia Falco. And we kind of thought of her as like the Elon Musk of her day, and that she was actually tracking in this alternate, reality. She was tracking to be the first person to create a flying machine. And she had all these visionary dreams of where flying was going to go. And we kind of get to experience her dreams of the future. And I think just, I worked with a Japanese writer who, is part of the writing team. And we just really thought very deeply about our guests and what could be said to really inspire and try to go beyond just the idea of entertaining. We wanted entertainment is like the foundation, but what could we do beyond that? And I think we really strived to do something great, and it's gotten some really great reactions. He'll send just tweets and blog posts, about the experiences that some of the guests have had, and they're sharing online, and a lot of those experiences are tearful. And it's when it gets down to like a level like that, like it that feels really good.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Sounds like, an incredible experience that you've, curated there. Switching gears a little bit to kind of, for some of our listeners who might want to, work for a Disney or, do what you're doing currently, do you have any advice for like maybe someone who's applied for Disney and never got a call back or something, like how to make themselves stand out, or what to kind of do while they're still in college or in those early years out of college or anything?
Great question. Disney, if you're doing something excellent, Disney will find you. It's amazing how many people have wanted to work for Disney, and then they kind of go on to do their own thing, and then Disney really wants them. And that happens a lot. I'll say like the most practical advice to getting in is, and I don't even know if they have this competition up right now, but I'm sure they're going to bring it back. But there's a competition that Imagineering holds and has held for many years. I think it's kind of been on hold because of the pandemic, but I'm sure that they're going to come back to it. Imaginations. So for anyone that's in college or is, up to, I think, a year out of college, can join a team, and there's a prompt that they'll give you. And, like I remember one year it was, how do you make the physical manifestation of Facebook? What would that look like? And you get into, you create a team. It could be just 2 people. It could be a larger group of people, I think up to 5, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5, and you might have someone from architecture. You might have someone who's a concept artist. You might have someone who's a writer. You might have someone who's a performer, whatever the case, you have this ability to create an attraction and then pitch it to the heads of Imagineering. And a lot of people have come from that competition. They've gotten internships through it. And even those who didn't win, I know a number of people who didn't even win, but they left a big enough impact that they were asked to intern there. And then a lot of interns, like if you can get your foot in the door as an intern, you have a pretty good shot of, I mean, as good as any, you know, of having a longer career there. If not that, then my suggestion would be I mean, especially if you're trying to get into story development, write every day, understand the fundamentals of storytelling, read about, you know, screenplay writing, theater, you know, writing, prose writing, understand it, practice it every day. And I would just say, just put your stuff out into the world and find ways, and this is more reading the tea leaves. Like, it's amazing how many businesses are thriving right now. Like, just homegrown businesses. And once you can prove that you can, even if you can, you know, say, create an experience of your own, and that experience might be, you might be really good at like decorating a room, you know, and turning your porch into like the outside of like a French cafe. You might be great at creating a themed dinner, you know, like a Hawaiian themed dinner with the music and, you know, the right food. And when you start thinking like that, and if you can find a way to, and I know this sounds like it's just like, oh yeah, just find a way to make money. It's not about that. It's about the feeling that comes from the validation that people will, you know, find value in what you're creating. And that's how you make your huge strides, when you subject what you're creating to critique. And you know, I've seen a lot of people who've wanted to be at Disney, and they end up doing their own thing, and they create something far bigger than they ever imagined. And I've worked with some of these people. So, you know, I don't want anybody to cut themselves short by thinking there's only this one path. And especially right now, there's physical experiences to think about, a whole world of physical experiences. And we seem like we're on the horizon of a whole universe of virtual experiences. And what is that like? Where do you come in as a storyteller to make that, to reach the potential of what that could be? And what does that mean for both, really for both, just worlds, both universes? And I think when you start thinking like that, you start to realize just how much opportunity there is. The last thing I'll say is, when I came in, there was, when I went back to school and went in for creative writing, it was during a recession. And I remember going to a counselor saying, am I insane for getting into creative writing right now? And I'll never forget, she said, do you see, you know, these books here? Do you see this, you know, potato package right here? Do you see like everything in my room? Like, someone had to write all of this. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And so we're not even just in the real world. Like, now there's a virtual world. There are virtual universes being created every day. And there are going to be experiences and you know, really, to stand out, it's going to need to be thoughtful and meaningful. And that is what, you know, each of you can bring, like your own unique perspective to that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's so well put. And you've offered a lot of like great practical suggestions too. So that's awesome. And yeah, it's like it seems like we're like on this frontier of like infinite like creativity and so yeah, that's just great. Thank you. And so we are coming up against time here.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah,
I did want to just ask though, like, um, one final question to
please.
leave off. Um, how do you kind of continue to develop your skill set? And like you've published work, you work for a great company. How do you continue to strengthen yourself as like a writer and storyteller? And like, what's kind of next for you?
I I send my stuff out.
Mm.
Whether, like I have a novel that, I'm hoping to get published one day. And, you know, I've continued to write screenplays and teleplays, and I send my work out to agents and I send my work out to producers, and I subject myself to rejection a lot. And it's something that it always stings. Every time it stings. But that's part, if you really want to be in a creative field, like that is something that you just need to get used to. And I'm a very, very sensitive guy. Everything hurts me. So, but by putting my stuff out there, it's how I know I'm part of the game. Like if I'm getting my feelings hurt, it's because I know, like, okay, I'm playing. That's how I know I'm playing. Otherwise, I'm just on the sidelines, and that's how I'm growing. And that is, I take that wisdom and I take that pain and I use that in, my work at Disney. And then Disney also, it fuels kind of what I want to say outside of Disney. What are those things I can't say, in a theme park that, on my own, and, how do I want to use my voice outside of Disney? And that's how that's what I do, and I want everyone, I think everyone should write, even if it's just a journal, just so they can look back and experience their story again. But I want everyone to have their voice heard in some way, and making something creatively, like I almost want to say it's the only way, when you make something and you share it with the world. That's how voices get heard. And especially when all these voices start combining and you start to see these common themes start to rise during certain times, and then certain things that didn't click before, like, oh yeah, this is actually important. And that's how change happens, so
Yeah.
yes, hooray for creative writing majors. And we need you. The world needs you, even when it doesn't seem like they do. Absolutely, you're needed.
Oh, great. We got another message. I'm sure Dr. Laughlin would have been proud to hear about your career, about your success. Yeah. Great.
That's
Well,
sweet.
yeah, I thank you so much, Joseph. This has really been a pleasure. You're such just an amazing person to talk to also. And just so you guys know, this chat is being recorded. And so it'll live on our website, csulb.edu/alumni. You can find it there. Also, Joseph, if people wanted to get in touch with you after the chat, are you okay if
Absolutely.
they email us or connect with you on LinkedIn or something like that, or social
Yeah,
media?
you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I feel like the rest of my social media is just trash. It's kind of just all over the place. I don't know what I'm trying to say on social media. It's just like kids' photos and my wife and stuff. But LinkedIn is a good place. You can email me directly at well, maybe you could send my email to them. I don't know if that's
Sure. Yeah, and the
Yeah,
follow-up. Yeah, I can definitely do that. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So, and feel free to reach out, and any questions that you didn't, get answered, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for taking the time to host this industry chat with us. Thank you to everyone who is on the call watching also. Appreciate you being here. As I said, this will be recorded. You have our website up here. You can also follow us on social media to find out about future chats like this at CSULB alumni. All right, thank you so much, and have
Thank
a
you.
great day, everyone. Go
Best of
Beach.
luck to all of you.